Okay, let's move on to our next speaker. She's going to cover a lot of topics, so hopefully you'll have some questions after she's done as well. Next speaker is Carla Sonntag. Carla is the founder and president of the New Mexico Business Coalition, which represents hundreds of businesses and thousands of New Mexicans. She communicates with over 24,000 New Mexicans through NMBC emails on important issues. Through her leadership, the NMBC is recognized and often consulted by New Mexico legislators, public regulation commissioners, and the media. Carla has been appointed by Governor Martinez to serve on both the Small Business Friendly Task Force and the Unemployment Insurance Advisory Council. Much of Carla's work centers on economic freedom of individuals and businesses. A native New Mexican, Carla was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A big hand for Carla Sonntag.
Thank you very much. I've got stuff, because I've got prizes, and what I'm looking for is the youth in the audience to participate while we go through this stuff. And so, when I ask a question, you get the answer right, you can come up and choose what you want. I've got carabiners that are really awesome. They've got flashlights on them. Or we've got these pins. You pull out the tab and they light up red. They've got like a flashlight inside. They're really cool. I'm doing that to bribe you to get involved. Can all of you hear me? Do I need a...
Can you use the mic?
Yeah, okay. My voice doesn't carry very well. Is this on? Now can you hear me?
Try the one in the back.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, this one's working.
Oh, good. Thanks. Okay. First, I want to tell you why I started the Business Coalition. As a native New Mexican, I've been here, obviously, all my life. I spent a few years in Germany when my husband was in the military. It was a great opportunity to see another country and see how it operates. I love to travel, but I love New Mexico. It is just a part of my soul. I think it's the greatest state in the nation. But we've got some problems. And I have become so frustrated with what's going on here that I literally started looking for a new place to move to. I couldn't stand the politics anymore. You can't hear me? Okay. When I realized that I was actually thinking about moving out of New Mexico, it broke my heart. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to leave this great state. I'm going to stay and fight. So I formed the New Mexico Business Coalition. And our philosophy is we're not going to change what happens in this state and in our nation until we change those people making decisions for us. That's our elected officials. So we have a different focus as a business coalition, and that's why we represent you, we represent business owners, we represent everybody in this state, because we've all got a vested interest in this. In the United States, we're under a democracy, right? And that means we have a lot of freedoms. When we talk about money, and I'm going to talk a lot about money today, because it's an important issue in our lives. In a democracy, we make our way in life, right? We get a job, we earn our living, and that's how we pay our bills. What happens with socialism? How does that work? And this is for prize. Tell me about socialism. There's a definition up here, but I want to hear it from you. What is it?
It leads to the government making decisions for you and spreading the wealth around so everyone has the same amount. Everyone has to cooperate in their own way and be willing to work for the same amount as someone else, be willing to do the same thing as someone else.
Absolutely. Come get a prize. Thank you very much. Socialism, the basis of it is spreading the wealth. So if you've got somebody that wants to work really, really hard and make a lot of money in a socialistic government, that's really great. But what the government is going to do is take that from you and give it to the person that doesn't want to work. Because it's not fair for you to have more than them, right? That's why we live in a democracy. But that's what we've got to fight for, guys. Because I'm telling you, we are at risk. There are people that want to take away our democracy and create a socialistic government for us. How many of you think that's a good idea? Do you know that in every country in the world that's ever tried socialism, it has failed? The latest was Greece. If you watch that, socialism doesn't work. We don't need to experiment with it in the United States to know that. Right to work. What is that? I can give you a hint this time on the screen. What is right to work?
It's a union wanting people, it's the right for an employee not to have to join a union.
Exactly.
You already read that.
Yes. Right to work means you can take a job, whether it is with a union company or not. But if it's a union company, you cannot be forced to join that union to take that job. It's the right to work. It's the right to choose if you're going to join the union or not. New Mexico is not a right to work state. If you find a job and that job is offered by a union company, you must join the union, whether you agree with it or not. Let me give you an example where this is not a good idea. My brother-in-law, who's retired military, took a part-time temporary job with UPS over the holidays. He had worked for them before, just wanted a little extra income and something to do. So he's going to be working for them minimum wage for about 45 days. UPS is a union company. He had to join the union. So for 45 days, they took money out of his check to go into the union coffers. He will never benefit from that. He'll never get anything out of it. He wasn't going to retire with the union. It's a 45-day job. Do you think that's right? Minimum wage, don't you think he wanted to keep those dues? It wasn't a lot of money that he was getting anyway. But we have, in New Mexico, every year a bill that's introduced to make this a right-to-work state, to give you the choice if you join the union or not. And we have protests. And New Mexico continues to not be a right-to-work state. And what that means is businesses that are looking for a place to locate, they typically want to go to a right-to-work state if they're non-union. So we're losing those businesses. We're losing jobs. When you guys graduate, you have less to choose from in New Mexico for what you're going to be doing. Let's talk about unions. Why were unions formed originally?
So that the people weren't underpaid to only be slaves and be subject to the employers, so that they would all be paid equally.
Very good. Come get a prize.
Could you repeat it?
Yes. Unions were formed many, many years ago to assure that workers got decent pay. It also was to assure that they got decent hours, decent conditions. There was a time when we didn't treat our workers real good. So the workers got together and said, you know what, you're not going to do this to us anymore. Does that happen today? Are we abusing our workers? Are we locking them in a facility and making them work 15 hours a day? No. But unions still exist, and that's okay. I'm not anti-union, but I will tell you I'm anti-nonsense. And we've got a lot of things going on in Santa Fe. I lobby a lot, and so I'm going to be telling you about what's happening in Santa Fe. We've got a lot of people that are elected officials that are controlled by the unions. The unions are the ones that got them elected. They have great influence in our state legislative process. So what that means is, if there is legislation going through and the unions don't like it, they'll come tell all their legislative friends, their senators and their representatives, and those people will kill that legislation. That's the reason we can't get right to work.
One of those fellows was carrying a Save the Middle Class RTW.
Could we
How to save the middle class?
Could we keep the questions till the end of her
You know,
discussion?
the graphic was there.
think we save the middle class by saving the United States and allowing free enterprise to operate myself. Okay, so back to Santa Fe. I want to tell you one quick story to tell you what kind of influence they have and what they're doing. We had some really good legislation going through to fix our workers' comp system. That system's been kind of broken since it was put into effect, mainly because of court decisions. So we spend a lot of time working on this. We introduce legislation. About a year ago, our governor, she appoints people that serve on the Workers' Comp Administration. 3 union, 3 business, or non-union. She had an opening for a union slot. She appointed somebody that was related to the unions, but unions didn't approve of this person. And so they said, that thing's off kilter. Now it's 4-2. This was a year ago. Instead of taking that issue up with the governor, with the Workers' Comp Administration, they're taking it out of the legislative process. So these bills coming through to correct the workers' comp system. We had a bill that said, if you get drunk while you're working, or you are using drugs, and you get hurt, the judge can decide to what extent you were impaired by drugs or alcohol, and they can reduce your workers' comp benefit. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you make the choice to impair your ability to do the job and you get hurt, why should you get full benefits? Because that workers' comp system, everybody pays into it to make sure our workers are taken care of. So you need to pay the price, right? You need to take responsibility for your actions. The union stood up and said, you know, we don't have a problem with the legislation, but we're unhappy with the governor's appointee a year ago, and therefore we're standing in opposition to this legislation. Guess what happened to it? They voted it down. So if you are working with somebody that's impaired and you get hurt, you got a problem. And now we're in a state that continues to tell people, it's okay if you get drunk on the job or if you're using drugs, we'll take care of you. That's Big Brother stepping in, and that's that socialistic mindset that really doesn't work well. Unions collect dues, and like I said, I have no problem if people are members of unions, but you need to know where your dues are going. A lot of those dues are not going to benefit you. They are going to get those people elected that they want serving in the state legislature and in Washington, so that they can carry out the union mission. If that benefits you, you probably want to support it. If it doesn't, then you need to consider if paying those union dues is a good idea for you. Because I will tell you, in the union, they're not providing for your workers' compensation. They're not providing a lot of benefits they tell you they're providing. That goes back to the state. And everybody's paying into that system. So again, question where your union dues are going and if that's a good investment, because you're working for that money. Okay, I want you to watch a video, and let me tell you, this was created about 4 years ago, with clips from 4 years ago. You're going to see President Obama making a promise to you, and we're going to talk about did he keep it or not. You're going to see a federal representative, Maxine Waters, talking about socialism. Listen carefully to what she says. And then you're going to see an oil company executive talking about oil prices at the end. Pay very careful attention to what these people are saying in these video clips. Thank you. It's that video. The free enterprise video.
Oh, okay.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket.
What guarantees are you going to give this liberal about how that will reduce the cost of gasoline at the pump if we let you drill where you say you want to drill.
I can guarantee to the American people, because of the inaction of the United States Congress, ever increasing prices.
I don't think the government's doing its best. Why doesn't the president go there, nationalize an industry, and get the job done for the people?
And guess what this liberal will be all about? This liberal will be all about socializing, would be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The oil and gas industry has been demonized for too long. It is this industry that helps pay for our schools, fund our roads, and provide jobs for New Mexicans. We can produce our own energy here at home and fund projects that are vital to our everyday lives. We have learned that environmental protection and economic opportunity can go hand in hand. We can produce more energy while protecting the environment for future generations to come. We can provide better schools for our kids to compete in a global economy. The New Mexico Business Coalition will continue to support the oil, gas, and other industries in our state. We will fight for jobs and economic prosperity and help get our economy moving again. Join us. Together, we will move New Mexico in the right direction.
What do you think? Okay, so let's talk about electricity. In New Mexico and at the nation's capital, we spend a lot of time talking about renewable energy. That's a good thing, right? Who can tell me what is the cheapest form of electricity?
Coal fire.
Very good. Come get something. It's coal. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that solar energy is the cheapest because sunshine's free, right? It is very, very expensive to put together what it requires to collect that solar energy and turn it into electricity. The other problem with solar, we have not found an effective, cost-effective way of storing that energy. So at night, we're not producing the energy you need in your homes, right? And in your businesses. So we've got to have another form of energy. So when they keep pushing solar, that's fine during the day. We've still got to operate at night. I want to tell you, the other thing is wind. Wind, the prices have come down, but has anybody ever seen those towers? How big they are? They're huge. It's a lot of steel. It's expensive. The wind may be free, but harnessing that wind and turning it into electricity is not. So, at the beginning of the video, what we saw was Obama saying that he's promising you ever-increasing electricity prices. Has he kept his promise? Yes, he has. There's one for the president. He has kept his promise on that. I'll tell you, I work a lot. One of the other hats I wear is working with utility companies, and I actually represent their shareholders in utility companies operating in the state. At the state level, we have passed mandates that they have to produce power by renewable sources. They've got to produce 20% of their power by 2020 with renewable sources. So they were putting up the wind farms and we were doing okay. It was expensive. And guess what, guys? Guess who pays for that? Every ratepayer, every consumer that gets electricity is going to pay more for that. Well, then the PRC, our Public Regulation Commission, said, stop building wind. We're going to force you to do solar. Solar was really, really expensive. We just had a utility company in the southeast part of the state file a rate case in December asking for $23 per month increase in electric rates for the people they serve. Over half of that is because of renewables. So when he said it was going to skyrocket, he meant it. The other thing that he said that wasn't in this video, some of you may be aware, he said that, if you want to build a coal-fired plant, you can do that, but it'll bankrupt your company. these utility companies that are burning coal, our cheapest form of energy, and we've got an abundance of coal in our state. They can't build the plants. Why? They're concerned about pollution. You know what's happening though? China is starting about 8 new coal-fired plants per month. It doesn't matter if we shut down every coal-fired plant in the United States. We are not going to make up for the pollution that's coming out of China. Our plants are very clean in comparison. We have yet to find anybody that has died from energy produced at a coal-fired plant. You'll hear horror stories, but there is no known correlation between that. So coal on average is about 7% cheaper than gas and 9% cheaper than nuclear. Nuclear energy is a great source of energy. We get some energy from a plant in the north, well, it's in Arizona. We get some energy from that, but building the nuclear plant is extremely expensive. Now we're going to talk about freaking fracking. Who can tell me what hydraulic fracturing is? You ever heard of it? No? Have you heard of fracking? Right now, today, in Santa Fe, they're having a hearing on fracking. I waited until 8:30 Thursday night for this hearing. They moved it to Saturday. Why? They wanted more protesters to come in and shut down fracking in the state. So let's talk about fracking, because it's important. Some people want you to think that fracking is really dangerous and it's polluting your water. That's not true. But as they continue with this discussion, they've got a lot of people very, very upset. What does fracking mean to New Mexico?
Jobs.
Do you? Yeah, it means a lot of jobs. Do you know in New Mexico, the oil and gas industry pumps about $2.1 billion into our economy on an annual basis. They are 25% of our general budget. 25%. If they went away, where would we be? We're not going to make it on minimum wage jobs, government jobs. It isn't going to happen. That industry is our lifeblood. 95% of their wells are fracked. So what does fracking mean? Let's take a look at that. What they do when they come into a well site, this is where they've drilled the well. And they go down, and then they're going to come across horizontally. And they've got to get to where those beds are. First thing to remember, they are thousands and thousands and thousands of feet below our water tables. Okay? It's going to be very difficult for this material to get to our water tables, but we'll talk about that. So when they come down, that entire drill space is encased in steel and concrete. They bring it all the way over here. Now let's say that this is where the formation is they want to hit. They drill down, they'll put a plug in that hole. You see those arrows, it's kind of hard to see, and that's why I didn't even do the next one, but they'll come down, they'll put a plug in with some material in there with a small little explosion, and they'll pop it out. They create these little fissures, little tiny cracks. Those little cracks go into the rock formation, the sand formation, and it allows the gas to escape in the oil. And it'll come back into that pipe, and they will pump it up. That's fracturing. Now, the big fear is, oh my gosh, but if you do that, what are you putting in that? What's in there? What's in that explosive material that's coming out? 99.5% of the material they're using to frack is water and sand. Water and sand. 0.5% is chemicals. Oh my gosh, here's the big fear. What's in those chemicals? Well, in that 0.5% of chemicals, they're trying to look for something that's kind of a lubricant that will make that stuff move, make the sand and water go. It's material or a chemical that is found in ice cream, toothpaste, deodorant. Sometimes you find it in a household cleaner, and it varies by company on what they're using. I wouldn't necessarily suggest you want to drink it, but I don't think you're going to drop dead because it's many thousands of feet below your water table. So, in the fear, we've had studies. The other thing to keep in mind, guys, fracturing has been going on since the late 1940s. They'll tell you this is a brand new technology. They just came up with it to kill you and get in your water supply. It's not true. It's been going on for a really long time. Again, nobody's died from it. In 2010, 30 states got together to study fracturing and to find out if there were problems. They didn't find any problems. No drinking water contamination. In 2012, the University of Texas did a study. No evidence of aquifer contamination from hydraulic fracturing and no leakage. The chemicals are not leaking out. When they pull that stuff back up, the first stuff that comes out is going to be that water and sand with a little bit of chemical mixture. See that truck over there on the right? He's going to take that water, it goes into those tanks, which is number 5, and then it offloads into the truck, and they take it to a safe storage place. Has anybody seen the movie Gasland? Good for you. This is a really cool picture that came from Gasland, and that is somebody's water faucet in their kitchen, and they've held a match up to it or a lighter, and look at it. Pretty amazing. That's flame coming out of the water faucet. They're blaming that on hydraulic fracturing. Didn't happen. That happens. This is a true picture. There are actually flames. If you light that match right by that faucet, you're going to get this little explosion. But it didn't come from fracking. It came, this is methane that's in the water supply. It was in that water supply since long before they ever came in and drilled wells and did fracking in the area. Actual photo, but in Gasland they tell you it's because of fracking. Matt Damon, I guess, I haven't seen the movie either. Matt Damon's in the movie, and so everybody think, oh, gotta be true if Matt Damon's in there telling us it's true. Yeah, not so much. So a mother, somebody's mom, decided she wanted to find the truth, and she set out to do a movie called Truthland. And I just would suggest to you, if you're going to see Gasland, see Truthland. I believe in education on both sides of the issue. When she went in to find out, because she wanted to know, are my kids being poisoned by fracking? She didn't find that they were. Tell me something about SNAP. I've got the definition up there, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What does that mean?
Not to do with food stamps or you go to a place and they give you food.
Yeah, the way that it works now is it's based on family income, and you get a card, and so you can go buy food, and it's based, so you have 4 people and you're making so much money, you get so much assistance, and it's a card, kind of like a credit card that you can use in the grocery stores. Good program, right? Because it's helping those that need help. And that's our responsibility. I'm not being facetious. I believe that. I believe we should help people that need help. Food stamp expense has doubled since 2008. And that's because we're allowing more people on the program. It's also because we have a problem managing the program. This is a little hard to see, but You can see New Mexico down there is the darkest. We're one of the highest use states in the nation. You know, about 50% of our population in New Mexico is living in poverty. What that says at the top is, are you selling food stamps? We have a real problem in New Mexico with fraud. It's a nationwide problem. Government won't let us stop it. That's the biggest issue. We've got Channel 4 did an investigation. In 2012, out of almost 39,000 cards issued to New Mexicans, more than 93,000 were replacement cards, about 70%. People saying they lost the card, so they have to get a replacement. Problem is, some of these people have lost them 4, 6 times. Seriously? If you need to feed your family, aren't you going to take care of that card? There is nothing wrong if you need help getting help. But if you're losing that card and going into replacement, there's probably something else going on, right? SNAP distributes about $56 million a month to 198,000 families, or about 442,000 individuals. Those cards,
$56 million or cards?
$56 million a month is the value. The cards are being sold for 50 cents on the dollar. It's real. Yesterday, I just moved into a new house and I had a landscaper working in my backyard. And I went out and I was talking to him and he told me he's very young, he's got a family, and he said, I have no food in my refrigerator. I'm hoping I get paid today because I've got the kids this weekend. He's divorced. And he said, you know what frustrates me? I have a lot of friends. And he said, well, let me say I used to have a lot of friends that are getting food stamps, welfare assistance, other cash assistance. They're not working. He said, I get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, and I work long hours. He's been working in the snow, and in the summer he'll work in the heat. But his friends, who used to be his friends, get these cards for food, and they're selling them. He got so disgusted with that, he took them all out of his phone book in his phone. He said, if I can work, they can work. And he said, and if they need the help, they shouldn't be selling a card. It's a real problem. I want somebody that's a student to tell me, why is that a problem? Somebody that has an answer before. Why is it a problem if people are selling their food stamp card?
People more lazy and prone to just mooch off of other people. Just they get this food stamp and they just decide I can use that as currency instead of what it's intended for.
Exactly. Come on up.
Maybe I repeat that.
He said that it makes people lazy, that they can get that and get cash for it when they sell it. Here's another problem. Who's paying for that? Your moms and dads, whoever's taking care of you, we're all paying into that system. Again, if they need the help, great, let's help them. But if they're selling it for cash, I got a problem with that. And one of these days, very soon, some of you are already working and paying taxes, some of you aren't. If you're not now, you will be. I doubt that you want to see your money going to that as well. Profit. It's not a 4-letter word, guys. It's okay for a company to make a profit. We have adults in the room right now that own businesses. How many business owners are in the room right now? These people that you see raise their hand are creating jobs. Whether they're creating a job that you fill or somebody else fills, they're creating jobs, they're paying taxes, they're helping support the state. That money goes into our roads and everything that we need to have to function as society, which is a good thing. They have to make a profit. If they don't make a profit, are they going to stay in business? It's not enough for them to make the money just to pay their employees. When a company makes a profit, they're typically putting that money back into the business. They're buying new materials that they need, they're expanding it, maybe they're going to help create a new job. It's not a bad thing to be creating profit, and we should support that. We don't see enough support of businesses and profit in the state, and that is one of the problems. Very quickly, on the national debt. Where is it? Somebody tell me. In the back. 16 trillion. Very good. Come on in. 16.5 trillion. That is $52,000 per person. Everyone in this room. Every baby, every retiree would have to pay over $52,000 in order to pay off that debt. But, we go back to socialism, remember, if you're paying that amount and then you got a baby, they're not going to pay anything, right? So maybe you need to pay more to pay off that debt. Can you imagine right now you haven't even gotten fully into the workforce and that's the debt that's on your back? It's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? Welfare benefits, all cash assistance, is now paying about $30 an hour, $168 a day. When you're working, the median household income is about $25 a day, an hour, per day. It has now become more economically beneficial for people, some people, to not work than to work. But the value of working, you can do better than that. You can make more than that, and you can make your way in life. And I just want to encourage you. Don't be held back. Don't think minimum wage is your minimum or your maximum. Find something better. Get your education. Work hard. Make your way in life. There is more to life than government benefits. You need to be one of the producers in society, not one of the takers, because we're getting outnumbered. And I want to ask you, why do you think we're doing this today? Somebody tell me.
To educate young people on economics.
Yes, come on up. But the most important reason, you are our future. So make it good, make tomorrow a brighter day than today. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my future. I want all of you to know, I've got cards up here. Sign up for our emails. When we have an event with the New Mexico Business Coalition, you're invited to attend free of charge. You can also have honorary membership in our group. We want you involved. I absolutely love you, and I thank you for being here. Thanks.
Did anybody have any questions? And also, we've got a little extra time with some of the many business leaders in the auditorium here wants to contribute some of their experience. Feel free to have at it for a minute or two. Sean?
Do you know the amount that oil and gas contributes to these kids' schools and other education programs in the state?
Yeah, her question was, how much does oil and gas contribute to education in the state? They're 25% of our budget, and education's about 50% of our budget. They are critical to what we're doing in this state. Right now, today, they've got that fracking bill going on. They've got bill after bill after bill to shut that industry down. Why do I care? Without them, we're in a world of hurt in this state. We should all be supporting them and thanking them for their contribution. They're not horrible people out to poison all of us. They're here making a lot of money for us.
Comparatively to the oil companies and natural gas companies' profits, how much of that do they give to education and things like that?
Well, again, $2.1 billion goes into the economy just in their actual taxes and contributions to the whole tax picture. And our budget right now, Paul, is what, under $6 billion?
Well, the general fund is 6, but the aggregate is somewhere around 17, 18 when you include federal transfers.
Yeah, but for the state budget, they're about 40%, and they are the lion's share, probably 50% of education. Yes, ma'am.
Then why do our leaders not want us to use oil and gas? Why?
That's the question of the day. You know, we've got, with coal as well, we've got this great vein of coal in the northeast corner, right where our coal-fired plants are. So they literally dig the coal out and take it to the plant. They don't have to transport it. We just now are going through a process where they're going to shut down half of the plant, both the plants in New Mexico. One sits on the reservation, one sits on state land, and they're shutting down half of those plants, and now they're talking about exporting coal. We're exporting oil and gas. It's fine to be looking at renewable energy and other sources to power our homes and power our vehicles. That's great, but we're not there yet. And until we get there, we've got these natural resources. New Mexico should be one of the wealthiest states in the nation because of our natural resources. And where are we? We are #1 in poverty. We have this poverty mindset, and that is why our philosophy in the Business Coalition is we're not going to change that until we change some of these elected officials making decisions. You're not going to change their opinion. I've tried for 15 years. You are not going to convince these people that oil and gas is there for a reason and it's to be used, and that business is good. They're going to demonize oil and gas. They're going to demonize business. They need to go. We need to find somebody that believes in business and believes in economic prosperity. And so that's where we get involved. Voter education at the time of when you're going to go to the polls, we're putting out information so you can make an informed decision. We know an informed voter is more likely to vote, and they're more likely to make a better choice when they do, because they got the facts in front of them.
So we seem to be in a losing battle then, because from what I can tell, the elections are swinging more democratic and less business friendly, particularly in New Mexico. So how do we change that course of action over the next 10 years? Because you're right, we should be swimming in cash in this stage, yet we're shackled to the ground because we can't get at our natural resources. So what is that strategy to change the tide of New Mexico?
It's voter education. And let me tell you, we're nonpartisan, okay? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. What I care about is, will you support business in the state? Because if you don't, we have a problem. So in 2009 is when I formed the Business Coalition. 2010 was our first election process where we did voter education. We did pretty well. Every race that we got involved in, we were 82% successful. Because what happens, guys, and I was there at one time, I was, before I got so involved in the political process, I'd get ready to vote, and I realized I didn't even know who the candidates were. I didn't know what they stood for. I don't believe in voting because they have a letter behind their name that says they're a D for Democrat or R for Republican. What I care about is what are they going to do for me and for you and for this state? That's why we formed this. So then we got involved in the election in this past time. The results weren't as good this time, but we, the Business Coalition, was still 82% successful. People are going to take this information, they're going to read it. We put out the facts, and we tell them where to check our facts. I don't ask them to take my word for it. I tell them exactly where to go, and I only use public information. It's just that the average voter doesn't have the time to dig into it the way that we do. And we do it because it needs to be done. And we don't pick races that we think we can win. We pick races because they need to be won. And we go after targeted individuals that continue to hold this state down. Government can't do it for you guys. You've got to do it for yourself. And you need to join us. Get involved with the Business Coalition. We've got a youth outreach, and I want you guys to get involved with us and help me do that. I'm a little bit older than you. I need the youth involved, creating this youth outreach. If you're interested, I want you to get my card and one of our things. Sign up, send me an email, call me. Let's get it going, because this is your state. This is your future. You're going to create what happens. I'm not. I'm here to help you every way I can, but you're coming up right behind me, and you got to take the reins, and you got to make this happen.
You're doing a fine job in New Mexico. I'm hoping there's business coalitions all across the United States, and particularly, you talk about student education. We need congressional education. You know, your example of Maxine Waters here, just this week said, you know, this $85 billion, really $41 billion decrease in the rise of you know, tax, it's going to cost 170 million jobs in the United States. There's only one problem with that. There's only 155 million people working. This is the kind of idiocy we have in Washington, and they don't seem to take training very well.
And it starts at the state level. When you get people focused in the state and you start changing your state elected officials, you will see the change shift in Washington. It is a state-by-state endeavor. We've had people come and ask us if we could model ourselves in other states. I haven't finished in New Mexico yet. I've got a model that works, and yes, we're willing to share, but we are so overwhelmed with everything that's going on. We're lobbying in Santa Fe. I'm getting 3 to 5 phone calls a week asking me to please help with legislation, either to kill it or try to get it passed. Legislators that know I'm doing education, some of them don't like that, because they are going to be some of the people that we are educating about. You know what? I thought that they wouldn't talk to me. They're actually talking to me because they're real worried about what I'm going to do. They should be. And I don't care how much we have a conversation. What I care about is their vote. Either they're voting for business, and they're voting to create jobs for you guys, or they're not. If they're not, and we find a good candidate that's pro-business, they better watch out, because we're coming. And we're going to provide that education, and they're going to find a new job, because they're not helping us.
May I just add a comment that's away from the politics, but you know, comparing the welfare recipients with workers. Walter Williams uses this term a lot. When you work, when you make money, everything you do is serving your fellow man. When you are not working and receiving money, it's taking away from your fellow man. That's another reason to be a worker.
And we're all going to reach that point. I mean, just natural life expectancy. I mean, at some point, those of us that are running businesses, we can't work forever. That's why we need you to come up behind us and be the business creator, be the business force, and understand the value of jobs in the state. Thank you guys very much. I'll be here for a little while.
Thank you, Carla, and I would definitely take her up on that to join the New Mexico Business Coalition. Free membership. There's a lot of movers and shakers in that group. You can definitely meet a lot of people. At this point, why don't we do a raffle? So if you can just give me this here, and find my where's my pink? Where's my orange notebook? Anyone see an orange notebook anywhere? Jeez. Ben, where did that go? Oh man, I don't know. Anyone see an orange notebook anywhere? Well, I'm looking for that. Why don't we show one of the videos? Which one? Okay, this is a good video.
The history of the world. A huge fraction of the improvements in standard of living have come because private businesses have created new products, given people jobs, have generated profits that raise people out of poverty and allow them to live fruitful and productive lives with reasonable standards of living. We can have much more of that, and it will have beneficial effects around the world if we step back from the excessive regulation and have a much more capitalistic system. My name is Jeff Myron, and I'm Director of Undergraduate Studies in the Department of Economics at Harvard University. talk about 3 myths about capitalism. The first is that being pro-capitalism is the same as being pro-business. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The point of capitalism is to make sure that businesses have to compete vigorously against each other, and that benefits consumers. It's not good for the businesses per se, because they have to work really hard. So many businesses understand this, and they hate capitalism. They're constantly trying to get government to erect various rules, restrictions, regulations that help them, but they're not in the interest of the consumers. So pro-capitalism is good for consumers. That's what we're ultimately trying to help. The second myth is that capitalism generates an unfair distribution of income. What true capitalism does is rewards people who are productive, people who work a lot of hours, people who have a lot of talent, people who come up with good ideas. They get big rewards under capitalism, and people who don't do those sorts of things get less. The one negative one might be concerned about is that some people have very little skill. They are not able to earn very much left on their own, and so very reasonable people support some anti-poverty spending. But that's completely different than interfering with capitalism, regulating prices, limiting quantities, imposing all sorts of things on businesses. Those make the economy less productive, give us a smaller pie, and make it even harder for us to operate programs which help those who are less fortunate because they're unlucky. The third myth is that capitalism was responsible for the recent financial crisis and the recession. That, again, is almost exactly the opposite of what is true. First of all, nobody who's being intellectually honest thinks that we had unbridled, serious capitalism before the crisis hit, before the subprime buildup occurred, before we had all the housing problem. We had enormous government interventions that subsidized risk, enormous government interventions that encouraged an overinvestment in housing. If one's going to try to draw any conclusion, it seems to suggest much more clearly that interfering with capitalism generates financial crises, generates recessions, because what we experienced was directly related to the incentives for excessive risk-taking, the incentives for overinvestment in housing that were created by government. The private sector responded to those incentives, so of course the private sector can't be completely absolved of being involved, but in the sense of causing, with the bad policies that caused it, not what the private sector or capitalism did on its own. Most importantly, whenever government bail out people who took excessive risk, it encouraged people to do more of that in the future. And we unfortunately went a huge way in that direction by the TARP and by all the Federal Reserve policies, which helped Wall Street and the risk takers not have to pay the true price for all the excessive risk taking they engaged in.
Okay, I found the notebook, and we're going to do some raffling here. The first one is a $20 gift certificate to Monroe's New Mexican Food. Is Rebecca here? Acosta? Rebecca Acosta? Maybe she just walked out. Marissa? Right on. Here you go. Here you go. You don't need to come up for that.
I don't know if
all right. And let's auction off another one here for Monroe's. Clear? Clear? Right on. $20 certificate for Monroe's. Definitely, if you don't win a certificate, definitely make sure you patronize that fine institution that will be providing our lunch shortly before 12, so definitely stick around for that. Also, Dion's is helping us out, and the Route 66 Diner is providing cookies, not to be confused with the Route 66 Malt Shop, the Route 66 Diner, so definitely patronize all those great institutions. Since we got a little behind, I'm going to raffle off some movie tickets at this point. Try to catch up. Yeah?
Emphasize